Hey everyone, my name's Calvin, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a recent disease that my fish tank had, my process of treating it, and what I'm going to do about it, and everything involving that process, and like information about fish disease and stuff. I'm not exactly an expert, but I have a friend who is a little bit more knowledgeable and has more experience with fish keeping, who I've been keeping in touch with throughout this process. So he's been really helpful through this all. So the tank in question is the one behind me. It looks really nasty right now because it's been undergoing treatment, so it hasn't been being filtered. But we'll talk about that in due time. Firstly, I guess I'll tell you more about the specifics of this tank. It's a 20-gallon long. At the beginning of all of this, it had like 5 Gardneri killifish, 5 albino cories, 1 pygmy cory, 4 guppies, and I think that's it, and some snails, but disease doesn't affect invertebrates in the same way it does fish, so we won't talk about that, but that's just a fact. So basically what happened was I woke up one morning and found 2 of my fish kind of floating on the surface of the water. They were 2 of the guppies, 1 female and 1 male, I believe. I had never had multiple fish die in the same night, or like found both of them dead at the same time, so I knew something was wrong pretty quickly. The next day I found another one dead, and the next day 2 fish were stuck on the filter intake, like where the water goes up, so it has like suction around it. So one of them was dead and one of them was basically dying. I pulled the dead one out and disposed of it properly, and the other one, I investigated it further. It was basically like flipped upside down, and its little fins were like going like hyperspeed, but it wasn't really moving a lot, so it was basically just like at the will of the water. And I've had fish with swim bladder disease and dropsy before, and it was pretty clear it wasn't either of those, because he didn't look swollen at all. He didn't have the pine cone fins, which is a symptom of dropsy, basically where their fins like, or not their fins, their scales like pop out so it looks like a pine cone. He didn't have that. He was also basically on like the ground, so he wasn't floating either. It didn't seem like he was like bloated at all or like more buoyant than usual. So basically what I did was I took a small plastic cup, cut holes into it, and put him into it, like in the water, so that there was still water flow within the cup, and so he could still breathe and survive, but was contained in one area, so he didn't have to be like pushed around all the time. The next morning he was dead, basically. So at that point I knew something was wrong. It was either like it was some kind of disease, so I contacted a friend, and he told me to get general cure. I got Furon 2 instead because Stan, who was the fish who I had watched die, who was a Gardneri keely, by the way, he had like eye clouds, which was one of the things Furon 2 says it cures. Furon 2 cures bacterial infection. General cure is for parasitic fish disease. I believe Lucian asked me to get the general cure just because swollen abdomen is one of the things for parasites, and the fish that I had were like floating like they would if they had a swollen abdomen. That was the basic progression of events. The next day I found another Gardneri keely, this time a female. She was floating in the same way that Stan was, and I basically watched her die. So I saw that whatever disease was in my tank was acting quickly. Like, I watched her go from perfectly fine to on the floor upside down to not moving, like completely dead. And I did put her in tea tree oil afterward just to make sure that if she wasn't fully dead, that she was and didn't have a painful death. Because I watched her die, I knew it was fast moving, and most bacterial and parasitic infections, there are more signs of stress in the actual fish. So I could take a pretty good guess that it was actually a virus, and there's a lot less research on viruses, so it was hard to tell what it was. With the viruses, they do need hosts to survive, which is why Lucian and I assume... Oh, okay, so all of the guppies died. One of the keelies survived, who is actually the daughter of 2 of my keelies, so she is a different generation than all the other ones I had. So I don't know if that affects why she's alive, like maybe it, whatever the disease was, affects adults more than it does younger fish, because she is younger. And she's also fine, which I'm very surprised about, because she's lived her whole life with like a very well-balanced tank, and right now it's been unfiltered for like a week, and it's been going through both Buruntu and General Cure, so it's been like through all sorts of treatments and medications, and she's still like just as energetic as she always has been. And all of the Coreys survived, all 5 albino Coreys and the pygmy, which is also like, I don't understand why, but they're all fine, which is super bizarre, because there's a possibility they are hosts of whatever, like, virus I have. What I'm gonna do after all this treatment, just in case it is a bacteria or fungus, or not fungus, parasite, I'm going to move all of the Coreys and the Keeley into a temporary 10-gallon tank and sanitize everything in this tank, like everything, the filter. I'm gonna get new media for it, the heater, all of the decorations, which is like wood, rocks, that little pot, and like some other stuff, and completely bleach out the entire tank. And I do want to plant this tank, so once I restart everything, I'm gonna plant it. I'm going to let it cycle completely, and then move the Coreys back into it, and then whatever other fish I want to get, which will likely be either white cloud mountain minnows or longfin danios, but we'll see. See, so that's the baby Keeley. She's not a complete baby right now, but as you can see, kind of, she's just hanging out, being an absolute babe. And she's actually really cute, but she's so much more aggressive than like all of my other fish, so I'm kind of, don't want to be mean about this, but I'm kind of upset that she's the only one that survived. Holy cow. Okay. She's a survivor, so proud of her for that. But as you can tell, like, it's really nasty in here. And this is not the normal state of this tank. It is going under a lot of treatments right now. But, so I'm going to move that snail. You can see him. The other snail I have, don't know where he is. And all of these Coreys and Keeleys, well, one Keeley, there she is, to the other tank, and hopefully all these tiny, like, pond snails, like this little guy, whatever they are, will not be joining them. I don't know what started or what caused the virus outbreak in my tank. I had just bought 2 new guppies from a local pet store. Like a week later, that's when all the dudes died. So it's likely they had a virus. The only problem with that is there's no reason why they would have died, which they did, if they were carriers of the virus. I don't really know. It's also possible that Stan, who had the iCloud, was like under stress already, and then he died. I'm not totally sure, actually. These explanations made sense in my head, and now they're not making any sense when I'm saying them out loud. Basically, I don't know what happened, but I'm doing everything I can to fix it. It's also gonna take a pretty hard hit on my bank account, which is really great for me. I really care about these fish, and I really want to do this right the first time, just so that in the future, you know, it doesn't come back, and it doesn't remain alive in the Coreys and Keeley. But that's most of what I have to say. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I know saying that's ridiculous, because probably no one but Declan is going to watch this. But yeah, so thanks for watching.